All right, this morning the Secretary General opened a virtual meeting of the annual or biannual rather Chief Executives Board to allow the heads of the UN system to reflect on the current world affairs as they impact and relate to the work of the UN system. The board will discuss salient emerging trends, opportunities, and challenges facing the system with a focus on the COVID-19 pandemic response, as well as the risks for human rights, biodiversity, climate action, global economic prospects, and deepening inequalities. The CEB members will also engage in a dedicated discussions on the current emerging root causes of conflict within the context of a comprehensive prevention agenda. And this morning, the Security Council held a debate by video conference on Bosnia and Herzegovina. During the meeting, Council members were briefed by the High Representative Valentin Inzko on the latest report from his office. And this morning, the Secretary General sent a message to the Multi-Stakeholder Forum on Science, Technology, and Innovation and the Sustainable Development Goals. In his message, delivered on his behalf by Francesca Spatolisano, the Assistant Secretary General and the head of the Department of Economic and Social Affairs, the Secretary General said that the pandemic has revealed as never before the importance of science, technology, and innovation for our well-being and survival. Not only have we seen a vaccine delivered in record time, but the crisis was also increased innovation in medicines and digital communications technologies, he said in the message. However, the Secretary General warned that billions of people remain entirely excluded from the benefits of the information and technology revolution, and the pandemic has worsened existing digital and technological divides. It is essential that we work together, he said, across borders, sectors, and disciplines to make science and technology work for everyone, he added. That statement was shared with you. And on Myanmar, our team on the ground says they're increasingly concerned about the deteriorating humanitarian situation in Myanmar more than 3 months after the military seized control. According to our humanitarian colleagues, the impact of ongoing intensified armed clashes continue to be felt in Myanmar's southeast, where an estimated 40,000 people have been displaced since December 2020. More people have been forced from their homes since late March due to attacks, including airstrikes by Myanmar's military and other groups. The continued fighting in Kachin and northern Shan states has caused thousands of people to flee their homes in recent weeks as a result of armed clashes. Moving on to Syria, I wanted to give you an update on Al-Hol camp and tell you that we are concerned about the situation of the estimated 60,000 people who remain living in Al-Hol camp in the northeast. We're particularly concerned about the rising cases of the COVID-19 virus across Syria, including in the camp. To date, 39 cases have been discovered and 6 deaths have been reported at Al-Hol. Humanitarian organizations are supporting contact tracing, recognizing that a wider outbreak could be devastating due to the already vulnerable state of the families in the camp. The UN and our humanitarian partners are supporting the COVID-19 treatment facility at Al-Hol and providing health, water, sanitation assistance to mitigate transmission of the virus. More than 31,000 children live in Al-Hol camps. That's over half the camp's population. And most of them are under age 12. 31,000 children are under age 12. No child should grow up in a place like Al-Hol. The UN, we continue to stress that long-term, durable solutions are needed for all the residents of the camp, whether they are Syrian, Iraqi, or from any other country. And any return to a third country must also be voluntary, safe, fully informed, and dignified. We further emphasize the need for the full and regular humanitarian access to the camp so that all 60,000 plus residents continue to receive essential services. And in Yemen, torrential rains and flooding have continued across many parts of the country since mid-April. Needs assessments are ongoing, with initial reports indicating more than 22,000 people have been impacted so far, most of whom are already internally displaced. Intensified rain over recent days has caused multiple deaths and injuries, as well as large-scale damage to infrastructure, homes, and shelters. Humanitarian partners are mobilizing to scale up the response. Work is underway to distribute food baskets, non-food items, and cash assistance, as well as to relocate displaced people to higher ground. Last year, once-in-a-generation flooding in Yemen killed scores of people and caused hundreds of thousands to lose their homes, incomes, and livelihoods. And the Special Envoy for Libya, Jan Kubiš, today transmitted the draft proposal for the constitutional basis for the elections to the Libyan Political Dialogue Forum. The Special Envoy thanked the members of the Legal Committee, in particular the drafting team and the rapporteurs, for their excellent work and accomplishment. He will convene a virtual plenary of the Libyan Political Dialogue Forum soon after the Eid holiday so that they can discuss and debate the proposal. And an update from Madagascar, where we've been telling you that of the dire conditions and the UN team working there with authorities to address record high food insecurity and an upsurge in severe acute malnutrition caused by drought, sandstorms, and caterpillar plagues in the southern part of the island. Joint efforts are also so far supported 1.3 million people in the 10 most impacted districts. The World Food Programme, the Food and Agriculture Organization have provided 820,000 people with food and livelihood assistance, while UNICEF provided nutritional support to more than 93,000 children under age 5, as well as pregnant and breastfeeding women. UNFPA and UNICEF have supported nearly 170,000 people with access to drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene, as well as prenatal services to nearly 110,000 children and women. Authorities and the UN jointly launched a flash appeal in January, calling for nearly $76 million. The appeal is 67% funded as of April, but additional resources are needed for large-scale food and nutritional assistance. And from South Sudan, our colleagues at the International Organization for Migration warned that due to funding shortages, more than 800,000 people in the country could see their access to health care cut. Prior to the pandemic, South Sudan's health system was already overwhelmed and heavily dependent on aid organizations who now face troubling funding shortfalls. IOM just needs under $750,000 a month to continue providing life-saving care to 800,000 people. And continuing on to Brazil, where our colleagues from the Development Coordination Office tell us that Silvia Rux of Uruguay has been appointed as the new resident coordinator in Brazil. Her appointment follows confirmation from the host government, and she took up her post just 2 days ago. As you know, resident coordinators are designated representatives of the Secretary General for Development at a country level. They lead the work of the team on the ground, including support the authorities' response to the ongoing pandemic and its multiple ripple effects. Ms. Rook's full biography is available on the UN Sustainable Development Group's website. And today, UNHCR warned that the mounting numbers of refugees and migrants in the central Mediterranean, so far 2021 has seen at least 500 persons have known to have lost their lives trying to make the dangerous sea crossing in the central Mediterranean. That's compared to 150 in the same period in 2020. UNHCR notes that while total arrivals in Europe have been decreasing since 2015, the latest disembarkation bring the number of sea arrivals in Italy in 2021 to over 10,400. This is more than a 170% increase compared to the same period in 2020. UNHCR commends Italy for keeping its ports open during the pandemic. Solidarity from other EU member states, however, is urgently needed as the deteriorating situation in Libya will continue to force people to resort to desperate measures to seek safety. And a quick update from Brazil, which I should have read earlier. Brazil has now received more than 3.9 million doses of the COVAX-backed vaccine over the weekend to support the national vaccination efforts. This has been facilitated by our continuous support to national and local authorities, complementing bilateral agreements made by the country and its national vaccination rollout, prioritizing older adults and at-risk people. This second batch complements the arrival of another million vaccine received in March, also via COVAX, with WHO's global headquarters and UNICEF and partners playing a key role. And this morning, the UN Food Summits hosted a global youth summit dialogue, which brought together 100 youth advocates from across the globe who championed a range of issues in their local context, from agriculture to education to climate. The event also marked the launch of the Good Food for All campaign to galvanize ideas towards better food systems. The Youth Dialogue is part of the forthcoming UN Food Systems Summit, which will take place in September. And speaking of FAO and food, the FAO and the World Food Programme will launch the 2021 Global Report on Food Crises, and that will be done in this room at 11 a.m. The speakers will be Dominique Bourgeon, Director of the FAO Liaison Office in Geneva, and Arif Hussein, WFP's Chief Economist. Then at noon, I will be joined after our briefing by the WHO's Chief Nursing Officer, Elizabeth Iro, and the Chief Executive of the International Confederation of Midwives, Dr. Sally Pearman. They will brief on the state of the world's midwifery 2021, jointly released by WHO, the UN Population Fund, and the International Confederation of Midwives. And to end on a bright note, we say muchas gracias to our friend in Santiago de Chile, as Chile has paid up its dues in full, taking us up to how many?
Near 100.
Near 100 is pretty good, because 99 is near 100. So, you see, if you don't play, you can't win. C'est comme le loto. Yeah. All right. Go ahead, Edie. At least tomorrow you may remember the answer. Yes. All right, sorry. Let's get going.
Okay. First, does the Secretary General have any comment on this accident in Mexico City where a train plunged off a bridge that crashed, that fell and killed at least 23 people?
We were very saddened to hear the news and see the horrific images. We send our condolences to the families of the victims and wish all those who were injured a speedy recovery.
Secondly, several months ago, you said that the International Civil Aviation Organization was looking into the idea of some kind of a vaccination passport for international travel. I wonder if there's been an update from ICAO on what they've looked into, what they're thinking about, and whether this is a possibility.
It's a very good question. I will check with our colleagues in Montreal. Yeah. Celia.
Stéphane, I'm going to ask a question that I asked before, but I never got an answer. So, do you have an update on the investigation about the killing of the Italian ambassador in the DRC?
The update that I have is that our colleagues at the World Food Programme are kind of the main point of contact with the two ongoing criminal investigations, which is done by the Italian authorities and by the DRC authorities. We are cooperating with them in every possible way, but I don't have an update. I would encourage you to check with WFP and also check with the Italians and the DRC. Okay. Alejandro Rincon. Alejandro.
Yes. Hi, Steph. How are you? Thank you so much for taking my question. Is on Colombia. A UN team was deployed to assess the current situation of social unrest in the city of Cali, and it's been reported that the UN team was close to the police when they started opening fire against protesters that are rallying against tax reform. So could you help us understand, and do you have any idea if whether or not any personnel at the UN have been affected by the social unrest in Colombia so far over the last days of demonstrations that we have had there?
In terms of the actual team itself, what I can tell you, these were from our colleagues in the UN Human Rights Office, as I understand it. And they say they were deeply alarmed at the developments in Cali, where there was, whereas you said police had opened fire on demonstrators, reportedly killing killing and injuring a number of people. Our human rights colleagues are in Colombia working to verify the exact number and the exact details of the situation. And I think as soon as we have something from them, we will share that with you.
Okay, and also, by the way, in Colombia right now, the social unrest continues. There's a new call for a national strike that's active for tomorrow. And so far, the response by the Duque administration has been to deploy the military to different cities. And I wonder whether or not the SG sees as problematic the fact that the Colombian government is deploying the military to increase security and possibly hiding the tensions there.
Now, I think, as in any situation, similar situation, governments have a responsibility to allow peaceful protest to go on. And I would refer you to what our Human Rights Office colleagues have said in that regard. I think they issued something out of Geneva.
Thank you.
Okay. Hold on, let me just go to Oscar. I think Oscar had a question, and then we'll go back to you, Ibtisam.
Yes, Stéphane, do you hear me?
Perfectly. I don't see you, but I hear you.
Do you hear me, Stéphane?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, just to follow up the question from my colleague Alejandro, and on this regards, does the Secretary General has any communication with President Duque on this regards? And because, as Alejandro mentioned, he says the deployed of the military forces to the street. And we have been seeing these kind of situations in many different countries. And when the president sends the military forces to clash with the civilians, and it's like trying to extinguish the fire with gasoline. And these circumstances, what's the Secretary General reaction or the message to the President Duque?
Listen, there's not been, as far as I know, any direct contact with the President and the Secretary General. As you mentioned, we have seen situations like this in other countries. What is primordial is that the government allow people to express themselves peacefully and to demonstrate peacefully. Those are basic rights, and that is our position in regard to places all around the world where we've been asked to comment on similar situations. We're of course following the situation as we are in many other countries. And again, I would encourage you to check in with our colleagues from the Office of Human Rights. Ibtisam.
Thank you, Stéphane. So you issued a statement last week on the announcement of the Palestinian Authority President that Mahmoud Abbas, that he's going to postpone the elections. But as a matter of fact, he's actually canceling the elections, and a lot of Palestinian human rights organizations and said that let's put it this way, one of the reasons that he named is the issue of Jerusalem, and that Israel is not allowing Palestinians in Jerusalem to vote, which is true. But Palestinian human rights organization also saying that his party in the polling is down, and that one of the reasons he canceled these elections is probably because left-wing parties and Hamas will win more seats. So do you have more to say than just taking note on this issue?
Well, I mean, obviously this is something that the Special Coordinator's Office is following very closely, and it is, I'm sure, no doubt coming up in the discussions they're having with various interlocutors. What is important is that the Palestinians are able to express their will through the ballot box. And we hope that whether it's issues relating to intra-Palestinian issues or issues having to do with the rights of Palestinians in the occupied territories, or especially in East Jerusalem, having the ability to vote. We hope all those issues will be resolved so that Palestinians are able to vote.
But they don't, I mean, there is no new date.
Right,
These elections are canceled. Do you think that this is...
What we do, we hope that a date is fixed. It is not up to us to fix that date, but this is something that is being discussed with the various interlocutors. We think, as Mr. Westland said, we think it's very important that a date is fixed. We welcomed the holding of the elections when it was announced, and we do think that these elections need to be held.
And do you see that this is an unacceptable step to cancel such elections, although all fractions are actually against such step, except for...
Look, to say that it's a complex political environment, I think, would be underplaying it. Our position, and one that we are expressing privately and publicly, is that elections, it is very important that a date for the elections be set.
On, if I may, on Israel and Palestine, but a different subject, on the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood in Jerusalem.
Yep.
I know that this is a very complete, I mean, there is about 3,000 Palestinians who live in this neighborhood, and they face evictions since years. And the story of Sheikh Jarrah is another story in Jerusalem, but the situation of the people who are facing eviction has to do also actually with 48, and the fact that in 1948 they were displaced from West Jerusalem and they couldn't go back, and the UNRWA back then built some of these houses that they were being now evicted from, where settlers could go and take these houses. What are you doing to help them? Did Mr. Westland visit these families? Because I saw that several European diplomats went there and visit families. Thank you.
Look, I don't know if Mr. Westland went in person. I can tell you that we're very much aware of the situation that is ongoing in Sheikh Jarrah. We're following it closely. Our position, which remains unchanged, is that all settlement activities, including the evictions and demolitions, are illegal under international law. Security Council Resolution, I think, 2334, and the international community will not recognize any change to the 1967 June lines, including regard to Jerusalem, other than those agreed by the parties themselves through negotiations.
Anything that is being done to help these families?
I will check with our colleagues on the ground, especially with UNRWA, if they're doing if there are any practical steps being taken. Okay, seeing no other questions, I bid you all. I was about to say Happy Friday, but yes.
I have a follow-up, Stéphane.
Sorry. Yes. Sorry. Who was that?
Oscar.
Yes, Oscar. Go ahead.
Oscar Bolanos.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Just to follow up, Stéphane, and what is the message on this crisis in Colombia, where the police and the army is shooting against the civilians, on the way to prevent and protect the civilians on this kind of crisis, where the president again is sending military forces to control the demonstrations, and those demonstrations that, as we can see, has been pacific, but with the use of force of the national forces, incite to create this kind of crisis at this level.
Oscar, the issue, governments throughout the world will deploy security forces to protect people, to protect institutions. That's not the issue. The issue is, whether in Colombia or anywhere else, is that people be allowed to demonstrate peacefully, be allowed to express themselves peacefully, and be allowed to express their grievances peacefully, wherever that may be. Thank you.